Hey everyone, we have a total classic before and after this week. Watch this room go from plain to insane. I've designed hundreds of rooms over the years for my clients, and it never gets old. So far, I've written 4 books on the subject, and that also never gets old. I love sharing all the design secrets I've learned because I believe with enough know-how, skill, and style that every sad before can become a beautiful after. All right, let's get into it. We started with a completely blank slate for this space. The clients had recently completed construction on their house, and with kids and family life and all the craziness of that, they had 4 kids. They had a completely blank front living room. The wife's dream was to make it sort of a getaway space. There's really no spaces in the house for the adults, so she wanted to make a living room that she and her husband and their friends could kind of get away to and just relax. So if you look at these befores, this is a very nice room. I was like, yes, this is beautiful already. But it was a really nice blank space, and we had nice high ceilings. I think there were 10 feet in there. And we had a centered fireplace, nice symmetry, which I love. So this was really more of a decorating project. All right, let's talk about what our amazing clients wanted, the wish list. So number 1 was cozy vibes. That is so important to my client, the wife in particular. This house is big, and she was feeling like it was cavernous, and she really, really wanted a cozy, warm feeling space. So goal number 1 was just to make her feel comfortable, make it feel warm and cozy. Number 2, she's a very cool person, much cooler than I am, and I just see a little bit of edge to her. She's very traditional, but she's got this kind of cool edge. So I really wanted the room to reflect that and to reflect my client's personality and style. Number 3, this is probably more me, but I know my clients were on board with it as well once I kind of convinced them of the merit of it. So with new builds, it can be very, very easy for them to just kind of feel cold and nice and perfect. But I feel like when you want to add soul to a home, you've got to give it some story, some character, a sense of age, a sense of history. So we needed to do a mix of old and new furnishings. So we were planning on going after new pieces, antique pieces, and vintage pieces with lots of patina to bring some character into that new build house. And finally, it was all about that quiet getaway. This room is sort of tucked away in the front of the house, and so we really wanted to make it feel like a space that was a little bit private and would sort of take them out of ordinary life and the dishes and the kids and the craziness and kind of send them to another place, kind of give them that exhale feeling. All right, so our plan for the 4-chair room. We wanted a deep, moody palette that would make the space feel older and more historical. A 4-chair furniture arrangement would be cozy and encourage conversation. A mix of vintage and new items would make the space feel timeless and get rid of the new build feel. And finally, I wanted to push my clients just a little bit out of their comfort zone with art. I feel like if you're not a little bit scared of what you're doing in a space, then you haven't pushed yourself far enough, and it's not gonna sing the way it should when the space is finished. So I wanted to get a little bit weird with the art. I didn't want it feeling generic, didn't want it to feel like something you could have bought at a big box store. I wanted it to be special, unique, and a little weird. At the start of any project, we take a look at the space from an architectural perspective. Although this house had been recently completed, it was a little bit too blank for the vibe that we were going for. So we looked for ways to, as inexpensively as possible, make some small architectural changes that would really change the room and give it a sense of age and history. Luckily, our client is our contractor and good friend, Mike Carr of Carmichael Construction, and he was very, very up for the work needed to get done. So we proposed doing beadboard on the walls of the space to give the room warmth. Woodwork adds a lot of warmth and integrity to a space over drywall. Then we also took the angle that had previously been on the fireplace, an angle I personally do like, I just didn't feel like it worked for the space. So we took the angle off and we ended it was sort of that hood that you see there. We decided to take the hood off and just create a mantle that would go right over the existing stonework, which we thought was really beautiful. The idea of taking sort of a deep, moody paint hue was really important to the whole plan in order for it to work. Bright white can feel very new, very fresh. And so knowing that we wanted the space to be cozier and moodier, we went after the sort of perfect kind of greeny, sagey, grayish color. So all of the above. And not only the walls in this color, but when I'm trying to give a sense of age to a newer space, I will take the same color and put it on all of the trim work, all of the woodwork. Then on the ceiling, I really wanted to give this space a bit of a grounding element, an earthier element, that kind of brown we keep talking about. And so we put planking, cedar planking on all of the ceilings. And it really just kind of lowered the feeling of height that that room had. It felt kind of very tall and cavernous, and we knew we wanted this cozy, moody space. So by putting the wood on the ceiling, it kind of visually lowered it. It even changes the woodwork on the walls and ceiling, even changes how the room sounds. There's less echo. It just feels good. It feels like a hug. So that was the plan for the architectural elements, and now we'll get into the furnishings. Okay, and you know I'm sitting in this big chair right now with like a tea. That is how we sort of pictured this space, a cozy space with big comfortable chairs that they could just really hang out, relax, have uninterrupted conversation in. So, like I said, it started with the 4-chair arrangement, and we decided to go with 4 of the philosopher's chairs. They're a wing chair, and we did them in leather. They're from my collection with Taylor King. I designed them myself. They have a channel back. They have an old English style, and they're super comfy. And with that nice high back, kind of like this one that surrounds you, you just kind of get that cozy library by the fire feeling. So that was where we started with the plan. Then our client has a love for beautiful rugs and vintage rugs, and we actually found the perfect antique rug from our rug shop at Lauren Lease & Co. that we put down in the center of the room. It was this deep teal with earthy brown in it, and the colors are just kind of muddled together, and it's so pretty. So you'll see that soon. And then we layered that rug on top of a natural fiber rug. I didn't want the space to go too traditional or too serious, so the coffee table is a concrete like resin piece, and it's white, and it has this little bit of play on classic sensibilities with sort of a fluted edge around the edge. So that kind of woke up the center of the room because I didn't want it going too dark and moody, wanted a little bit of contrast. We also pulled in a vintage console table with a light stone top, again to kind of pull in those lighter colors. Side tables, drink tables, very important. You can see our floor plan here that you're looking at. We do not have all of the side tables drawn in, but we do have the 2 layered rugs with the 4 chairs on top, and then the console in the corner with a lamp on top of it and 2 floor lamps. Reading lamps are so important. We do have a central light in this room, this really cool sort of modern lantern with that black edge coming in, but I also want to always make sure that, especially if it's a room for reading, that everyone can sit somewhere and read. So the 2 spots where we thought that would be happening would be by the fireplace. So we have a pair of lamps by the fireplace. So we've got drink tables where they're needed, see, just like this. You've got to be able to put your tea down. And then we also brought in, let's go to the artwork, because we definitely pushed them a little bit with these suggestions. We're in a very really equestrian, horsey area, so we found some really cool horse pieces. One was this kind of funny looking horse that would go over the console table. And then the other one was this beautiful, massive, kind of relief with the horse in the middle, very, very classical looking, but so big, it has like a modern vibe to it. So we brought those horses in. I think they were a little wondering why the horses were there, but it really was kind of that odd quirkiness that we wanted, and they did love them. I will often do a mix of different types of art in one space, and they live on a property that has beautiful views out all of the windows. There are horses nearby, there are always foxes and deer and wildlife out the windows. And so I went with a variety of different styles in the artwork, but they all kind of had that theme of sort of animals and nature in the space. And so the final piece that we brought in, which was definitely a stretch for my client, I love her for trusting me, was the oversized vintage tapestry in there. All right, I'm gonna show you one last picture of the before for dramatic impact, of course. Here she is, really, really great bones. Really good bones. That's a fun before. But let's see how it looks now. So that gets me pumped. If you're into design, I hope that gets you pumped too. So this room was kind of like the girl in like the 80s and 90s movies that was stunningly beautiful in the beginning of the movie, and they just put her in like bad clothes and like a baggy sweatshirt and told you that she was unattractive, but you knew she was gorgeous all along, and then she had her makeover moment. This room was kind of like that, but we definitely emphasized all the features that we could. Let's go to our next little slide here where you can see the full after. Paused for ya. I'm a big book person. I like to really I like video, but I really like to look at a still image. So we're gonna show you a bunch of still images now. And this is how the room ended up. So we had those cozy, grainy grayish walls. We did velvet curtains that almost matched the walls perfectly, but just in a deeper hue. You can see the woodwork on the ceiling. It really allows that lantern to kind of come down and be the sculptural element that it kind of contrasts against. Adds that deep earthy element. We've got that rug that our client fell in love with. It was in our shop and I just knew it was perfect. We pulled the whole palette from that rug, and then you've got that center table that just kind of glows in the middle. The asters in the picture were from my garden, and we added some brass accents, some marble, some cool accessories. Everyone's got a drink table so they could put their tea down and just really relax in there. Those wing chairs are so comfy and cozy. And then you see the huge horse. So that baby is vintage. I think it's 50 some years old, but to me it looks like something that's just fresh and modern and really wakes the space up. So love that. Oh, and something I didn't talk about, but I will show you, it's a little trick of mine. You can see we have those little white glass, smaller lights to add additional sort of dim lighting if needed in there. And there are 4 of those in that almost square space. All right, I'm just gonna give you a little look at some of the details. We've got that pretty stone console in the back with a landscape, vintage landscape, our funny horse there. We've got a driftwood sculpture, some bone beads, which I love. And then we had a cloche with some cool objects in it, just layering. I wanted it to have a sort of curiosity shop feeling. I think when you're creating those thoughtful, quiet spaces, when you have interesting objects that spark conversation, it just makes sense. Like you bring your friends in there and like, wow, that's odd. That's an odd looking horse. And so when you have those conversation starters, it really just makes for a more interesting, time with people. And then over on the right, you can see that is the tapestry with the deer and the other wild animals that I just love. I love how that warmed up the palette, brought some depth, some texture in. And then our cozy philosopher's chair there with a little, we call it the drinker's friend end table there. So here you can see the entire space again and how we really pulled that entire color palette from the rug. You've got that deep moody kind of teal and the grayish in there, and then mixed with that earthy brown. It was just the perfect starter. I don't have an always starting point. Rugs are not always my starting point. Fabric is not always, but there's usually something that kind of sparks the starting point for the color palette. And in this case, it was that amazing vintage rug. So here you can see too that the fireplace didn't change too much, but it changed enough to make the room kind of make sense for what it was. We took that sort of angled hood that was on it before, we straightened it out, and with that added beadboard, it just adds a really kind of historical feel to the space. So you can see here why, for me, it made sense to kind of straighten out those lines. It created more of a focal wall for the art that we wanted, and then we got to add this beautiful wooden mantle on top, and the stone doesn't jump out at you as much as it used to, but I think it's this really beautiful, subtle, earthy focal point. And I just love how it turned out. They did a beautiful job here. And then on the last picture, you might be able to see it if you're watching on a bigger screen, the sweet horse is there. And yeah, so we just set up a little drink station there and just another spot to hang out. We used stuff they had too, but we did bring in a lot of accessories and surprise them. Some clients are up for surprises, and these ones definitely were. And there you go, one final look at the before and the after. If you enjoyed today's little sit down with me, please be sure to hit like and subscribe. We've got these coming at you every single week, and we have literally hundreds of these stored up. Here, everybody. I hope you have a cup of tea with how many times I've tried to cheers you guys. I hope you agree that it went from plain to insane. I don't know if I can say that. My husband's telling me I have to. I hope you all agree that it went from plain to insane.